Imperium of Man spans much of the known galaxy. As such, its military is of an equally enormous size, and its scope defies the
I've seen this gory pocket aluminum out there in Nigeria before. I'll tell you where these LiDAR caves are. See, tell me it's too
grasp of human minds.
Tell me
Yet at
I
its
can't
core
handle this
lies
dead
a
puppy.
bastion of order in the form of the 1,000
Go
Space
down a
Marine
beat and treat
chapters.
me like you ain't never seen before, Reboot.
In days past, such chapters were part of sprawling legions capable of fielding hundreds of thousands of Space Marines alongside their associated Imperial Army, fleet, and logistical elements.
To the number personnel. Slide to the left. On the outside, this starts to
However,
personnel.
while these formidable institutions were critical in the wars of the Great Crusade, their incredible power proved dangerously concentrated during the bloody civil war of the Horus Heresy in the early 31st millennium. Thus it was that in the aftermath of this conflict, the Ultramarines Primarch, Roboute Guilliman, split the remaining 9 loyalist Space Marine legions into roughly 1,000 chapters of 1,000 Marines, in what came to be known as the Second Founding. The restructuring of these troops was formalized in the sacred tome of the Codex Astartes. Written by Roboute Guilliman himself, this exhaustive treatise laid out his ideal for the order of battle, tactical doctrine, and moral behavior of a Space Marine chapter. Its guidance proved key to the evolution of these new units. Yet, while it has been adopted to one extent or another by the vast majority of chapters, full, unwavering conformity proved impossible. In the 10 millennia since its inception and the death of Guilliman, the Codex Astartes has been added to by many other writers, and several competing versions have emerged. Yet, the core tenets of the Codex have stood the test of time. With this in mind, we can now describe the general organization of a Codex-compliant chapter of the 41st millennium.
Well, he's doing highly silver. This guy is
generally speaking, a Codex-compliant chapter has around 1,000 Space Marines led by a chapter master. Each chapter is in turn divided into 10 companies of 100 Marines, each led by a captain and a pair of lieutenants. These leaders are accompanied by a command squad of hand-picked...
This is important. See, look at this. So you got 10 times 10 to 10 to 10, 10, 10 with just people before you start packing them into the tanks and a bunch of other stuff. Right? You would think. But where does the hydrogen gambit go? I mean, in terms of, alright, 1,000 people over at Comcast, or CNBC, Schwab's, Yahoo Finance, some of the problems that they're having technically down there with the Rebooty stuff. I'm not saying necessarily it's Slanesh, but maybe they're just chemists and just hanging out with Zench up here with the top 9 as far as what that would be standard model. Any quarks or anti-quarks or any new top levels of the quarks that could come into any configuration of that top 3. Firstly, given that higher structure, anything that's left over here, because 9 at 100, whereas each under this to, say, the subfile really lattices to the 1/2 or 1/8 or even I'll take thirds depending on how math works in that way, but I think it's actually depending on whether you go the offset third for vote or whether you go quarters by guidance 1/2 on the year with 2/3 of an operation here back up to the 7 every their cycle. Whether it's gold, silver, or something else that they're ripping, you know, you could easily get through to the finances on any of these people about, like, who is their recruiter or sharps guy down there that, I'm not getting back up into this. I'm getting an alien and Exomorph conversation here about Black Dragon still signing it, and they'll take a human and straight turn it into a dragon. Are you kidding me? I mean, I get bit by a zombie down there. Now they get a little worried about me as far as the heresy, let's call it, or whole sacrilege against the church and devil juice as far as what's in the hydrogen reactor, teapot, or Kroger coffee maker, or they lose their shit over dumb stuff on somebody's got to work their books on if you're going to put another setup into there to say, I don't know, what is the quarters on this is actually what I was kind of looking for in there. That other one I was, well, you do all this math in just the so right way, and you operate it. So that way, when you get into there with everybody in there, whether they really like them or they don't like them, in terms of what thirds or what percentage of the overall mountain, maybe if you had to look at, if they said market cap or number was how they were listing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Tesla dropped out as terms of what it's been doing over a time, a technical recession over the S&P over certain months would give you that idea to come back over out of the log 10 to the 10th to the 10th to the 10 to the 10th, the XYZ at least. It's certainly going to get into photon gluon of A delta B, which is to say any one of those configurations on, well, 1 bit, 2 bit, 3 bit, 4. Maybe some standard deviations between our calc over here, the sanctimonium over at the SCPs, or just the Dirac equation in the Singer's example of a two-dimensional card. It shrinks down to a line that sinks everybody back to the second dimension. Let's say as far as the entropy configuration of that click hydrogen gambit, that supersymmetries, well, I would need a more advanced unit to do independently of some of that Brownian mechanic layover, either by supersymmetry structure, how tall that Ultramar stands on the IH Schrodinger's equation, who wears it better, and Hawking radiation stuff, and how that's going to split to any other split, because you might argue that's too many throws, but you can just arbitrarily say log 10 is that model of a halo of players that does have to the Emperor, the Warp, the Webway, tying into it like a Seeker in general about structuring. Some of the way those graphics come out and what equipment does what. Now technically they don't disagree with Ultramar's finishing the track. They actually agree with what that is, but their indicating ranges here with what equipment they have a different equation to them doing it. Technically, again, our equipment, our setup, our people, their equipment, their setup, their people would cross us over probably more than likely because that's magnets. It's not necessarily that hydrogen and helium charge have a magnetism in Lenz's law and some very weakly interacting charges that they would interfere. They're so weakly interact you could barely notice them. There's electricity moving through the wire if you have a short or something else apparently somewhere's out here. It's not instantaneous in terms of what the sinusoidal can actually really reference about what that is. If you put the Laplacian, let's say, at a different point or origin source to why that tracks whatever it tracks, I'll flip that. Got me from a while back here. What was this again? General Shepherd turning on each other about what it is, about paying the kids on the ranch or not paying them, what's serviced, what's 1% of the work down here to what this corner of it is in the photon and gluon. I mean, if you have 60 people or you have, just this, then the supersymmetry to why the God Emperor may protect you in being Saladin's war, going at it with the Leopard King in that scenario means, like, I got people, I got the ground, I got a boat. We'll all die down here, and believe me, if every one of them's ready for that, there's that. But if you go out on that field like, God Emperor protects, and, roll for stamina, you're going to get your whole shit kicked in. I mean, that's going to be... just me. I usually talk about this in the stone mill, making Crusher run out of it. I gotta save up enough to get this machine down to then just wind up just taking Crusher concrete and doing it instead of using, which may even beat the quarry guy dumping it over the quarry face for him to try to safe it, because they gotta train this guy to do it in the e-waste of that stuff about dealing with it. bolt you in until we refactor what it is, because sometimes that got out there was yeast in the rice, there was water, it got out of hand on a shipping deal. Next thing you know, because way back when somebody made some rice wine out of it, that you have a whole cultural issue where Japan's export on it is still left to some kind of issue or something on this, on the whole overall model on it. Yeah, you still work for the throne somewhere else out there, kind of some genesis, kick you out of town, bring you in, get your foot in the door, see what it does, has an effect on the issue, and straight up just load it in there about hauling balls with the farm truck. Yeah, I shouldn't need to, honestly. But there's some of that snow. That's like a half a day for me. We're going to need to reload that, load that, do that up. So, when somebody tells me to buckle up Buttercup like Bob Lee Swagger in there talking to this night, I probably didn't. Or if I did, it was this one. Obviously, he's, got the guy they're about ready to gank him on his own about, Major's real distinctive. It's what's dangerous in there is, honest models on Palestine model. If you got off the maps and we really serviced it like the M1 it was, grab your bags, get you on the unit. If it was the one way or the other on there for what that does, Gypsy Jaegers and Schwab's going to get in trouble. They don't want that shit. Are you kidding me? Guy jumps out of a plane, right? Well, there's plenty of that on the internet as far as why you don't want them necessarily doing that when it comes to the reason that we could. I'm not saying that there's not a way to take the young lady, get it in the truck program, mining bits inside here for the Mona Lisa. That's not the issue. It gets a little frisky inside of there sometimes about whether, damn it, dump your gene. You got an IQ of 160. Unblinking, flinching, pissed off Superman in there. Everything I see is about to be documented in here, Batman, so I hope you good guy. I don't know what.
I'll rattle along, so I'm flipping cards.
The plot thickens about when to challenge him correctly as far as how that climbs up the Sharp's ladder, about realistically first day in there doing its thing, and then I meet him later. There's this guy. Why the company turned over in itself will be a company to take him on about the system. Is Red Drill Sergeant had apparently. Let their model be just that kind of representation. I'm a detective to see what happens next. Yo ho.
Literally, toil and trouble is the card I pull.
Well, I'm not saying information on the scales don't matter, but you might have to unbolt that thing and put them to the scale to see what happens. But if you ain't John Coffey over there, roll on to, I don't know, man. It gets pretty frosty out there at negative 273 Kelvin. Started everything. Coming in, ask questions. Wow, just for me all the way down. Again, if I have that, my town is this, and I'm probably gonna get into some maps at some point in time in here about. Remember that chip? That's important one of populations, who's in there, what they're doing. Some serial killer technique about the Big Seven or the Magnificent Seven, what we've been ripping on here for the bar on. There's a jiu-jitsu technique of this guy's failure as manager, unless this guy's training didn't have an operational what speed he wanted to do that correctly. Otherwise, it was inside of just roughly over a short, maybe 30 seconds. That's fine. I've certainly seen my fair share in unloading the saws of the 3D engine it takes to do that stone mill like that.